Good evening, friends. It has been a very busy past couple of days. I've just had to get things ready for an upcoming trip that I'm going to be taking, so I will not be on here as much. Possibly, I'm kind of debating on that. But it has taken me 2 days to get through Leviticus 20 just because it's just boom, 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 boom. But you know what? That's one of my flaws. That is one of my, something I struggle with because I stay busy all the time. And anyway, so I feel like Leviticus 20 is a very good chapter that talks about being set apart and being, as we are called to be holy, as believers. So I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to go through my notes because I do want to, I realize that sometimes I don't reflect on my life sometimes. So I want to start doing that more because I do want to show you what God has revealed to me. I do want to tell you what God has revealed to me. I do want to show you, or let you know rather, how He's worked in my life and making me realize those things. So, Leviticus 20. Okay, so the Leviticus 20 verses 1 through 8. Here is where they are talking about child sacrifice, that Molech guy, and the occult. So if anyone or the community chooses to ignore, tolerate, or justify this evil, remember I told you about the statue and the hands are like this and they slide the newborn infant into the fire and the guys are beating the drums. Anyway, you will become guilty by association. This is telling me, or this is telling us to do not turn a blind eye. Don't turn a blind eye. And I know, I know that I have in my past where it is just easier to not get involved and just keep on going. And because you don't have to do anything, you just keep on going. You haven't done it. You're not the one doing anything wrong. You just see it, but you don't. The situation's not justified. So that's like guilty by association. I can't remember where I heard that phrase before, but anyway. But God holds societies accountable for what is tolerated. God will not tolerate people destroying their children or seeking guidance from dark, demonic spiritual realities. Christ became the sacrifice God Himself provided so that no other sacrifice would ever be needed again. We are told to consecrate ourselves, meaning turning away from these horrid practices. That was horrid. God is the one that changes our hearts. We can't do that on our own strength. God is the one that changes our hearts. Our job is to be obedient and align ourselves with His values. 9 through 16 is crimes against society and design. The home, it talks about honoring your parents, being respectful, that kind of thing. The home is a mini model of God's authority. A child who completely rejects their parents rejects the concept of divine authority. Now, I know there's other different situations in that, so I'm not specifically talking to you. This is just what I'm summarizing it. Marriage is a sacred, unbreakable covenant. These are covenant laws given to Israel, and the penalties were death. So this is talking about the different types of sinful sexual relations. The New Testament emphasizes that all people stand in need of God's grace and forgiveness. God was protecting His design. He is the creator. Other regions were practicing horrid sacrificial rituals, orgies, and God was establishing these laws to keep the Israelites set apart, which apparently I think the Hebrew word for that is Kadesh, I believe, and distinct as His people. God is the creator, and His laws demand protection from divine order. We are created in God's image, and God is not a God of confusion, but of peace in 1 Corinthians 14. Verses 17 through 21, minor infractions and biological distinctions. In that section, God's demanding that our Human appetites and desires stay behind the guardrails, or respect dignity and natural boundaries. He was reminding Israel they were a royal priesthood and not wild animals driven by impulses, rather than immediate stoning, which before 9 through 16, I believe it was stoning. Anyway, but instead of stoning, the penalties were being cut off or dying childless. The judgment that rightly belonged to us fell upon Christ instead. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Isaiah 53:5. And y'all, that's in the Old Testament, in case you didn't know. Jesus bore the fire of God's judgment so believers could receive mercy. Then, we're getting towards the end, verses 22 through 24. The promised land was a gift. It wasn't an entitlement. God warns Israel if they imitate the nations around them, the land would vomit them out just as it did the Canaanites. God was providing more than enough to survive on. He was providing abundance. But the blessing for that abundance was connected to their faithfulness. And in the last 3 verses, God's final calls to be set apart. Israel's identity was not to be superior than others. They weren't any better than any other. Well, they were better than any others, but they were not to act like they were superior to others. God wanted them to be unique. Instead of copying other people around them, their identity came from the promise, the covenant with God. This thing continues into the New Testament. Believers are called a chosen race, a royal priesthood, and a holy nation. 1 Peter 2:9. So, some of my reflection questions that I want to answer and share with y'all. So, one of them is, when God was talking about don't turn a blind eye to sin and do not be like the culture, around them. And where is God asking me to remain spiritually set apart rather than allowing fear and exhaustion, bitterness, and the world's ways of coping shape my heart? So, for me, I am one of those people. I like to stay busy, and sometimes I don't like to stay busy, if that makes sense. When I know somebody that is hurting, or something for some reason, I want to move mountains for them. I do. And it's not my mountain to move. And that is something I'm still kind of learning. Okay, so I'm still in that process. But the beautiful side to all these things that have happened to me is that I do have more compassion. I do have more empathy for others. And I'm right here. So obviously I'm persevering now, today. But a lot of times, instead of me saying, Lord, show me what is mine to carry, I turn it into, well, Lord, if no one else is going to carry it, I will. And that's so true, not in just the specific events that I mentioned in my introduction video, but just in a lot of things. Leviticus 20 repeatedly reminds Israel that they belong to God. So for me, my sons belong to God. My grandchildren belong to God. Everything that I have belongs to God. And letting go of that, and still letting go of some different things, can be sometimes hard for me. I need to ask myself, Lord, or tell myself, Lord, I trust you because I know He can fix the things that I cannot. And y'all, there are so many things that I cannot fix. I I can only do so much, and ultimately it belongs to God. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be very difficult for me. And if there's any issues going on in someone's life, like I've been through grief, addiction, cancer, missing, so it's like my heart is just ready for that next emergency. And I kind of find myself doing that today. I'm going to be real. I'm waiting on the next emergency. What can I do to fix it? And I have had to realize over the past couple months that I've got to stop feeling like the outcomes are my burden to carry, because that belongs to God. I don't know, as far as rest, what is that? I don't even sleep well. I mean, y'all, it's like my husband used to say, I was always on a hamster wheel. So I was on this hamster wheel before he ever passed away. So I mean, I have been on this hamster wheel for such a long, long time. And if I get into that place where if I'm not doing something about whatever is going on in my life, then I feel guilty about it. And I shouldn't feel guilty about it. It's not mine to control. And just because not that I've stopped, okay, not that I've given up on anything that's happened in my life. I have not given up. But again, there's only so much that I can do. And the rest of it, I have to trust God. And I just have to trust God to take care of it, because I know I can. I'm just that icky worm human. That's what I am. Because I know one day that I'm going to get to that point where, okay, I can go to sleep. I think it happened just not too long ago where I was able to sleep all night. It was the first time in years. I think the dogs woke me up at like 5 or 6 in the morning. But that's what time I get up anyway. But I know that I can sleep. And God's not sleeping. While I'm resting, God's still working. When God seems absent, God is still working. When you can't hear Him, or you feel like you're too, I don't know, damaged or gone or whatever, you're not. Or I'm not. I'm going to fix my point of view. I am not too far gone. I am not. And another thing that my husband used to tell me, he said, Jeannie, he said, you're God's favorite daughter. And, you know, I just thought that was the sweetest thing. And that's what I am. I'm not just a widow. I am not just a widow. I'm not a mother of a missing child. I am not the mother of a family member going through, struggling with addiction. I am not the mother of somebody with a health disease. I am God's daughter. I am, and that is something that I have to keep on reminding myself. And in Leviticus 20 at the very end, God says, you are mine, and I am His. I am His. God, a thought just entered my head and it went away. I'm so tired. My eyes are just so irritated. But I think that, you know, even though sometimes I kind of get on that hamster wheel, and I'm going to close this video because I feel like I'm starting to ramble. But even though I feel like I'm on that hamster wheel, more than likely I am, I will go to whatever lengths it is that I need to go to for those that I love. I will. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword. What is my strength? I think it's a strength that can also be my demise at times, because I am exhausted a lot of times. I am tired, and I am so thankful that I have not consumed with bitterness, and that's because of him. I am not consumed with bitterness. I am breathing, I'm walking, taking one day at a time, because I know he's right there with me. And if I particularly am going through a storm, I know he is with me. And it's him that will go to the ends of the earth and back. I can only go so far. It is in Jesus. Who will do that for you? Or he did that for me. Oh, there I go again. I think sometimes I know I need to slow down, but I don't know, y'all. When I'm in the middle of it, I feel like I can't. So I need to work on that. That's one of my areas that I struggle with. I just keep on going, and I'm not the Energizer Bunny. I belong to God. I've got to remind myself of that. I belong to God. I do not rely on my own strength. I rely on him. So, I wanted to get that out there as those questions were popping up in my head. And I just want to share with you how God's working in my life. So, peace and blessings. It might be a day or 2 or 3. When I get back on here, we'll see. Peace and blessings. I love you. Bye.